Let's start this off with Clay Holmes, and I have him going to the Royals. The Royals had a great year this year. They added 30 wins to their win total from 2023, and they gave the Yankees a tough matchup in the division round. They'll look to take a step forward in 2025, and I think Clay Holmes would be a great addition for the back end of this bullpen, even after adding Lucas Erceg at the deadline. Sure, Holmes did blow a lot of saves this year with the Yankees, but he still posted solid numbers overall, a 3.14 ERA, FIP of a 3.02. He also gets a lot of ground balls, and with the Royals' very good infield defense, I think this would be a great fit. Moving on to Matthew Boyd, and I have him signing with the Dodgers. I'll be honest here, I didn't have Boyd making it into my top free agents at this point just a few months ago, but here we are. After coming back from Tommy John this year, he was great for the Guardians, posting an ERA at 2.72, a FIP of 3.29, over 8 starts, along with 10 strikeouts per 9. He also pitched very well in the postseason. Now, with the Dodgers having plenty of injuries so far this year with their pitching, along with Ohtani most likely on some kind of an innings limit when he comes back next year after getting elbow surgery, along with Jack Flaherty looking for a big deal this offseason, looking like maybe Walker Buehler could end up going elsewhere. I see the Dodgers adding some depth here with Boyd, who is originally from the West Coast. Kind of reminds me of the James Paxton signing before the 2024 season. Had a few starts with the Red Sox down the stretch in 2023. I think you could see a similar situation here with Matthew Boyd. On to Paul Goldschmidt, and I have him going to the Astros. After the disaster of a contract given to Jose Abreu, the Astros could really use someone steady at first base, and one guy that's been pretty steady in his career is Paul Goldschmidt. Now, he is coming off the worst season of his career, posting a league average 100 WRC+, but I think going to Houston can help him out, considering they have the short portion left, which could give him a little bit of boost in power. On to Jose Iglesias, and I think he stays with the Mets. What a year for the Mets and Jose Iglesias. Not only did he have one of the best years of his career, hitting 337 with a 381 on base, a 448 slugging, a 137 WRC+, solid defense at second base, he also put on a concert for crying out loud. Now, with Iglesias, I do expect the numbers to come down. His BABIP was extremely high this year, right around 380, but he would be a solid veteran to have in the mix alongside Luis Angel Acuna. On to Alex Verdugo, and I have him signing with the A's, and unfortunately for Verdugo, despite making it to the World Series with the Yankees, he did not have a great year. Only posted an OPS of 647 along with an 83 WRC+. However, there are some things that are positive with Verdugo. He makes a lot of contact. He ranked very high in contact percentage, and he is good defensively out in left field. Posted a positive 3 fielding run value. Now, the Sacramento A's, my goodness, that sounds weird to say, they could use a bit of an improvement in both of those stats, and I don't think he's going to cost all that much considering how poor of a year he had. Up next, we have Blake Treinen, and I have him going to the Rangers. He missed all of 2023, but he came back this year and was very solid. Had an ERA of 1.93, a FIP of 3.00, 12 strikeouts per 9 over 50 games, with the Rangers bullpen sorely needing arms. With Kirby Yates, Jose Leclerc, and David Robertson hitting free agency, Treinen would be a great fit in the Rangers bullpen. On to Jose Quintana, and I also have him signing with the Rangers. One area I expect the Rangers to add to this offseason is the rotation, with Nathan Eovaldi, Max Scherzer, and Andrew Heaney all becoming free agents. Now, I see the Rangers adding a veteran for some depth here. Quintana had a solid second half for the Mets, and he would provide some more stability in that rotation. On to Quintana's teammate from this year, Luis Severino, and I have him signing with the Tigers. The Tigers had an incredible run in the second half after being sellers at the trade deadline, and they were one win and possibly one less grand slam away from getting to the ALCS. Now, Tarek Skubal was amazing this year, probably going to win the Cy Young, but the Tigers can't keep this up with the chaos pitching staff. Now, I think someone like Luis Severino, who had a great bounce-back season with the Mets, would be a solid option behind Skubal. He gets a good amount of fly balls, and with the Tigers possessing a good outfield, along with a good support system with the coaching staff, I think this would be a great fit. They were also interested in him last offseason. Up next, I have Jock Peterson going back to the Diamondbacks. There's a mutual option for 2025 worth $14 million, but I think since he had a 3 Fangraph wins above replacement, which is worth right around $24 million, I expect him to turn it down. However, I could see them working out a new deal because he did do great for them. Hit very well this year. Hit 275, a 393 on base, a 515 slugging, a 151 WRC+, 23 homers, most of the damage coming against right-handed pitching, but why fix what's not broke? Moving on to Tomoyuki Sagano, and I have him signing with the Padres. Remember Tomoyuki Sagano from a couple couple of years ago. It looked like he was going to come over to the major leagues after he got posted, but in the end, he didn't come up with a deal with a major league team, so he went back to Japan. But now he's an international free agent, and I see AJ Preller being aggressive here. Now, Joe Musgrove just had to get Tommy John surgery, so the Padres are going to have a void in the rotation, and I think going after a guy like Sagano makes some sense. Now, he's more of a dependable mid to back rotation kind of a guy. He throws a ton of strikes, and he has a ton of pitches to play with. Now, Preller has been aggressive in the international market plenty of times, and they did show interest in Sagano just a couple of years ago. On to Nick Martinez, and I have him heading to the Nationals. The Nationals are in an interesting spot because they have a lot of young talent and a lot of payroll flexibility. Someone like Nick Martinez, I think, would make a lot of sense. Had a very good year. ERA at a 3.10, FIP at a 3.21, 42 games, 16 of those being starts. He's a good flexible option, and for the Nationals over the next few years, while they're trying to figure out, who's going to be in their rotation, who's going to be in their bullpen as they go into a competitive window, I think having someone flexible like Nick Martinez makes a lot of sense. Up next, I have Ha-Seong Kim, and I see him staying with the Padres. Unfortunately, his season was cut short due to a shoulder injury, which could affect his free agency, but since the Padres really value him and he likes being with the Padres, I can see them both exercising the mutual option or just coming up with a new deal. On to Justin Verlander, and I have him going back to his old team, the Detroit Tigers. Let's do a fun one here. I already have them signing Luis Severino, so why not bolster the rotation even more with an old friend in Justin Verlander? Hey, he said he wants to pitch until he's 45, and I think it could make some sense for him to go there to give the Tigers another option every fifth day, if he stays healthy, of course. He would also be reuniting with his former manager, AJ Hinch, but most of all, he would be a great mentor for all of the young pitching they have there, which is something Hunter Brown, his teammate with the Astros, spoke highly of with Verlander. Another thing to think about, too, is Verlander and his wife, Kate Upton. They now have a home in Florida, and hey, the Tigers, they got spring training in Florida, so I think that could make some sense, too. On to another future Hall of Famer this offseason, Max Scherzer. And I have an odd one here. Let's do the Royals. Now, part of me wanted to do the Cardinals because literally every baseball fan ever has wanted Scherzer to pitch for his hometown Cardinals. However, since the Cardinals do want to cut payroll this offseason, I just don't really see it happening. Why not the other team in Missouri, the Royals? They did show us last offseason that they can spend some money, and with Michael Wacha most likely turning down his player option and going into free agency, they could use someone to fill that void. Why not a veteran like Scherzer? Sure, he's going to have to find a way to stay healthy, but with Ragans and Lugo, the co-aces of the staff, picking up most of the slack there, along with Brady Singer stepping up this year, Scherzer is going to have a lot less pressure on him to anchor a rotation. Up next, I have Jeff Hoffman, and I have him landing with the Dodgers. Earlier, I mentioned that I think the Dodgers will let Blake Treinen move on this offseason, and I could see them leaning towards fortifying the back end of the bullpen. Jeff Hoffman was sensational this year, posting an ERA of 2.17, a FIP of 2.52 over 68 games. Hoffman's pitches this year were mostly the fastball and the slider, a pair of pitches the Dodgers used heavily in their bullpen this year en route to a World Series championship. Up next, I have Jeff Hoffman's old teammate Carlos Estevez, and I have him heading to the Diamondbacks. The D-backs bullpen was not very good in the first half, but they were a lot better in the second half after they traded for AJ Puk, along with leaning more into Justin Martinez over Paul Sewald. However, the D-backs failed to make the postseason, had a disappointing end to the year, so they're looking to regroup for 2025. I see them adding an experienced closer to fortify the back end of the bullpen, allowing Martinez and Puk to be solid setup options. Martinez has lights out stuff, but he tends to get in trouble with the command, walking about 4.5 batters per 9, while Puk seems to pitch his best more in the 7th or 8th innings. Estevez has been a reliable closer, and he had a solid year this year between the Angels and the Phillies. 54 games, ERA at a 2.45, FIP at a 3.24. He's also more of a fly ball pitcher, which I think will go hand in hand with the D-backs' very good outfield defense. On to Nathan Eovaldi, and I have him staying with the Rangers. While the Rangers did have a downer of a year going through a World Series hangover, Eovaldi had a solid year, and he was able to pitch enough innings over the last couple of years to be able to trigger his player option. Now, I think both sides have enjoyed the partnership, and even though the Rangers are looking to stay under the luxury tax this offseason, I still think they're going to have enough room to be able to work something out with Nathan Eovaldi. I think they'll get a new deal done. Moving on to Nick Pivetta, and I have him signing with the Braves. Now, the Braves did just unload the contract of Jorge Soler to the Angels, which brought back Griffin Canning, but I see him more as a depth option at this point, or maybe they even just non-tender him. Now, with Max Fried possibly heading elsewhere, more on that later, later, I could see the Braves looking to add a dependable arm on the cheaper side that has proven himself in the postseason for the back end of the rotation, because Chris Sale does have the injury history despite the Cy Young caliber season he just had, along with the uncertainty of Spencer Strider when he comes back. Now, when it comes to Nick Pivetta, he's very dependable. He ranks 23rd in innings pitched going back to 2021, and he has shown that he can come up in big spots in the postseason, and he really shouldn't cost all that much. Moving on to Michael Wacha, and I have him landing with the Angels. Speaking of that trade, with the Angels sending Griffin Canning to the Braves, that could open up a spot in the rotation, and they desperately need to beef up the top of the rotation, considering they only ranked 28th in starting pitching F4 this year. Now, with how bad the Angels have been in recent years, it's going to be hard for them to attract the top pitchers on the market. I could see them, though, throwing some money at a mid-tier guy like Wacha, who is coming off the best season of his career since 2017, to give them a veteran atop the rotation, similar to what they gave Tyler Anderson. On to Walker Buehler, and I have him signing with the Mets. The Mets under David Stearns so far have shown how good they can be with reclamation projects, including helping Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, and Jose Quintana get back on track. Now, as for Walker Buehler, after coming back from Tommy John this year, he had plenty of ups and downs. ERA at a 5.38, FIP at a 5.54. So I wonder with Buehler if maybe he wants to get a fresh start somewhere, take a one-year deal away from the Dodgers. There seemed to be some iffiness. There seemed to be a bit of a disconnect this year with him and the Dodgers when it came to his rehab. At one point, he left the Dodgers to go with the Cressy Sports Performance Group to do his rehab. At one point, he said he felt like he needed to be somewhere else. So I'm not sure what was going on with that, but I think in the end, he'll go elsewhere. I think he'll take a one-year deal, maybe with an option to go to the Mets. Moving on to Shane Bieber, and I have him staying with the Guardians. After being one of the top pitchers in the game for a while, he ended up missing all of this year due to Tommy John, but since he'll be back in 2025, I think him and the Guardians will do a one-year deal since he has been rehabbing with them and whatnot. So I do think he will get a lot of interest on the market, but I think in the end, because of the comfort, he'll just end up going back to the Guardians and he'll go back out into free agency next year. On to Gleyber Torres, and I have him going to the Mariners. The Mariners had a tough time with the offense this year, and they only ranked 24th overall when it came to second base production. Now, with Jorge Polanco only posting a 92 WRC+, I see them moving on. Now, as for Gleyber Torres, while he did see his numbers go down across the board this year, he did hit very well in the second half after moving to the leadoff spot. I think he could be a nice jolt for the Mariners offense. Moving on to Kirby Yates, and I have him heading to the Phillies. With both Carlos Estevez and Jeff Hoffman free agents and unsure to return to the Phillies really could use an experienced guy at the back end of the pen as they continue to go after a World Series championship. Yates was amazing this year. ERA at 1.17, FIP at a 2.50 over 61 games, had 33 saves, easily the best year of his career since 2019. He'll provide some good stability for the back end of the Phillies bullpen. Moving on to Yusei Kikuchi, and I have him staying with the Astros. After he got traded from the Blue Jays to the trade deadline to the Astros, he was phenomenal. Over 10 starts, he went 5-1 with an ERA of 2.70. Obviously, something worked, so I say keep him around to give the rotation some more stability over the next few years. As the old saying goes, why fix what's not broke? Up next, I have Tanner Scott landing with the Blue Jays. Point blank, the Blue Jays bullpen absolutely stunk this year. They ranked dead last in relief pitching Fangraph WAR. A lot of injuries, a lot of ineffectiveness, especially with Jordan Romano. So they sorely need a guy that can come in and lock things down. Tanner Scott has been one of the best relievers in baseball for a couple of years now, and he was great this year with the Marlins and the Padres. ERA at a 1.75, FIP at a 2.92, had 22 saves. Absolutely, the Blue Jays need to sign this guy. Moving on to Christian Walker, and I have him signing with the Pirates. Now, the Pirates aren't really a team we're used to seeing hand out big contracts, but I think for a guy like Christian Walker, it could make a lot of sense. The Pirates desperately need a bat, as they only rank 27th in offense on the year, and they could really use some power as well. They only rank 25th in home runs on the year. Well, with Christian Walker, he ranks 11th in all of Major League Baseball in home runs over the last 3 years, and while he will cost something, I don't think he's going to break the bank, considering he's a 34-year-old first baseman. I say he gets around 16 to 18 million per year, say over 3 years, and with Ben Cherington saying they'll have a bit more to spend this offseason, along with being willing to sign Aroldis Chapman last year, I say they bite on Walker, who is also originally from Pennsylvania. Up next, I have Tyler O'Neill, and I think he lands back in his home country with the Toronto Blue Jays. Point blank, the Blue Jays need more pop in the lineup since Vlad was really the only one producing this year, and they only ranked 26th 26th in homers on the year. Now, with O'Neill, he's definitely going to bring some power. He had a great bounce back year with the Red Sox this year, posting a 132 WRC plus with 31 home runs. Moving on to Sean Manaea, and I have him landing with the Guardians. He had a great bounce back season with the Mets this year, tossing over 180 innings, over 32 starts, ERA at a 3.47, FIP at a 3.83. The Guardians starting pitching ranked near the bottom of Major League Baseball this year, and they ranked near the bottom when it came to innings pitched. Manaea would come in, give them some solid innings. I think he'd be a great addition for this rotation. Moving on to Jerickson Profar, and I have him staying with the Padres. He had a career year this year, posting an 839 OPS with 24 home runs. The Padres are still very much in a competitive window, and with no immediate answer in left field, why fix what's not broke? Moving on to Teoscar Hernandez, and I have him landing with the Red Sox. Here come the Giraffe Neck Robbie comments, but I think this is a match made in heaven. The Red Sox really need a right-handed bat, and I see them letting Tyler O'Neill walk, considering he's had a lot of durability issues over the last few years, only played 113 games this year, and had a very high strikeout rate. Now, with Teoscar, who they did negotiate with last offseason, it looked like there was momentum building towards a deal, but then he ended up taking a one-year deal with the Dodgers and had himself a great year. Hit 272 with a 339 on base, 501 on the slugging, a 134 WRC plus, 33 home runs. Also won the home run derby. With Teoscar as well, he's always hit very well at Fenway Park. He's also talked about how much he loves playing at Fenway Park. I think this is an absolutely perfect fit. Moving on to another big bat, Anthony Santander, and I have him going to the Reds. The Reds were very disappointing in 2024 because they had a ton of injuries and guys that underperformed, but they just hired legendary manager Terry Francona. So I see them going after someone in free agency. Enter Anthony Santander, who hit 44 home runs this year for the Orioles. The Reds, on the other hand, could use a boost in offense as they only ranked 26th in WRC plus, only 19th in home runs, and they only ranked 26th in offensive production in right field. Now, with Santander, he would give them a steady bat in the lineup while they figure out everything else going on in the lineup. Moving on to Blake Snell, and I have him landing with the Orioles. What could this mean for Corbin Burnes? Well, spoiler alert, I have him going somewhere else, so stay tuned for that. But because of that, the Orioles are going to need to add an ace at the top of the rotation, and Blake Snell definitely fits that bill. And remember, the Orioles, they also had interest in Blake Snell at the trade deadline. Now, after a terrible start with the Giants this year, he was amazing in the second half and even threw a no-hitter. Now, a big reason for the bad start was signing late in spring training last year, but this year, I don't think he'll make that same mistake. And when it comes to the Orioles, they're in a competitive window, and if Corbin Burnes ends up going elsewhere, they need to add something to the top to replace him. Moving on to Jack Flaherty, and I have him landing with the Cubs. The Cubs are reportedly looking for an upgrade in the rotation, specifically someone that can make 30 starts and pitch in the postseason. Well, Jack Flaherty just helped the Dodgers win a World Series. Sounds like he could be a pretty good fit if you ask me. Now, the 30 starts part, that is a little questionable. He's had some injuries over the last several years, but over the last couple of years, he has gotten pretty close to the 30-start mark, and he had a good season this year, posting an ERA of 3.17, FIP at a 3.48, over 10 strikeouts per nine. Now, he benefited a lot from the Tigers pitching lab, which the Cubs are also heavily invested in on their own. I think a rotation of Flaherty, Imanaga, Steele, Tyone, and whoever else rounds it out is pretty solid. Moving on to Pete Alonso, and I have him signing with the Nationals. Now, I think the Mets will be interested in bringing him back, but I think Stearns is going to have a set value on him, and I could see another team out there needing a bat, willing to pay up even more. Now, one team out there that's on the rise and could really use a bat is the Nationals. They have plenty of payroll flexibility, and even more so now that Patrick Corbin is off the books, and they don't really have a clear answer at first base. When it comes to the offense, especially the power, they could really use a boost there as they rank second to last in home runs this year, only in front of the Chicago White Sox. That's not very good. Now, with Alonso, he did have a bit of a down year compared to his usual numbers, but he still hit 34 home runs, had a slugging of 459 and 122 WRC plus, still had very strong advanced metrics. I think he would be a great bat for the Nationals. Moving on to Willy Adames, and I have him landing with the Giants. Adames has been a solid all-around player for a few years now, and he had another good season with the Brewers, hitting 251 341 with an on-base at 331, slugging at a 462, a 119 WRC plus, 32 home runs. Now, his defense was a bit down this year, but he's always had a good track record of defense, so I'm not really too concerned about that. Now, he would be a great add for the Giants, who just went through some turnover, going with Buster Posey over Farhan Zaidi as the president of baseball operations. Now, with Adames, he would be a steady option, giving them some good pop in the lineup, and he would give them very good defense on the left side of the infield with Max Chapman. That would be very good. On to the other side of the diamond with Alex Bregman, and I see him going to the Tigers. The Tigers offense had their issues this year before going on a great run in the second half, and it feels like they could use a veteran presence as they enter a competitive window, with Jace Young not nailing down the third base job, along with being drafted by the last front office regime. It's possible he could be a trade piece to help reinforce other parts of the team. Now, with Bregman, he has been one of the more solid third basemen in the game for a while, and this would be a reunion with AJ Hinch. I think this makes a lot of sense. Back to the pitching side of things, and I have Max Fried landing with the Red Sox. Here come the Draft Nick Robbie comments again, but I think the Red Sox are going to look to add to the top of the rotation. The starting pitching was much better than expected this year, thanks to a breakout year from Tanner Houck, along with guys like Brian Bayo and Cutter Crawford having decent years. And don't forget, Lucas Giolito will be back in 2025, but it feels like they need another bona fide option at the top. Now, I don't see them spending big money on someone like Corbin Burns, who's going to get more than $30 million per year, but I could see them going a bit cheaper for someone like Max Fried. I expect him to get something in the $24 to $26 million range. Now, with Fried, he's been very solid over the years. This year, he was very good. 29 starts, ERA at 3.25, FIP at a 3.33, but it feels like he could take a step forward. Now, the Red Sox did a great job at getting a ton out of their pitchers this year, thanks to a newly revamped pitching development system within the organization, along with a new pitching coach, Andrew Bailey, focusing on the strengths of the pitchers. I think Fried would be a great fit in Boston. On to the top pitcher on this year's market, I have Corbin Burns signing with the Mets. I see the guy that helped develop Burns, David Stearns, giving him a big-time deal. Now, he didn't have the resources to do it in Milwaukee, but under Steve Cohen, he does now. Now, with Burns, he's as steady as they come, averaging right around a 4 Fangraph WAR over the last 3 seasons after his Cy Young season in 2021. Having a duo of Burns and Senga atop the Mets rotation will be absolutely filthy. And last but not least, I have Juan Soto signing with the New York Yankees. Sorry, Mets fans, but I just can't see Soto leaving the Bronx after the incredible year he just had. Sure, Aaron Judge is going to win the MVP, but Soto will be right behind him in the voting because of the career year he just had. He hit 288 with a 419 on base, a 569 slugging, a 180 WRC plus, a career high in home runs with 41, and 8.1 Fangraph wins above replacement. This guy is going to get absolutely paid, probably going to get somewhere in the $550 to $600 million range. Sure, the Yankees did just sign Aaron Judge not too long ago to a massive deal. They still have Garrett Cole and Giancarlo Stanton on big deals too, but a player like Juan Soto at only 26 years old does not come around very often. He needs to be in pinstripes for the rest of his career. So everyone, those are my free agent predictions. Tell me your predictions down below in the comments. I can't wait to see all of your thoughts. But everyone, that's all I got for right now. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.